Hey, what's up everyone? Chad Allen here and welcome to Firechild Video's Blender Tutorials. It's been, what, a good 4 months since I've been with you guys, but I'm back, I've recovered, I'm got more energy than ever, so I'm not going to waste more than 30 seconds here. Let's get into it. You know why we're here. We're going to be taking a look at the Blender physics engine, kind of giving you just a quick little dive into it, maybe explain a few things, and have a little fun with a Newton's Cradle. Now what I'm going to do is try to scroll through this. My screen capture kind of screws up playback sometimes, so as you can see, this cool Newton's Cradle. I'll put a little camera move in just for fun. Sorry if it's a little jittery, but this screen capture kind of slows down, hogs up a lot of CPU. So that's what we're making. Let's not waste any time. We're a minute into this. Let's go File, New, create a new one. Actually, I've got another one open here. Oops. Okay, so we're going to use our default cube here, and what we're going to do is, first thing off the bat, we need to make that frame. You can make your frame however you want it, or you can go with no frame at all if you just want to get into the physics part. I'll put up a little notation to where you can skip ahead to wherever the physics portion is. But if you want to do the whole thing, let's go ahead and start with the frame. Let's hit 7 on our number pad, 5 to toggle orthographic. And let's get started on our frame. We're going to make this actually pretty small, so let's hit S, scale it down. Pretty small indeed. So I'm going to put it right inside this square here. And scale it back up a little bit. Okay, now we'll hit 3 to go into side view. And we want to bring it up and set it right on what's going to be our floor. So let's set it right on this horizontal line right here. Line it up right there. Okay, now tab to go into edit mode. And we can go into wireframe. You can also hit Z. We'll toggle you between solid and wireframe. So go to wireframe mode, hit A to deselect everything. Then what we want to do is go ahead and create a loop cut. We're going to set up for a mirror modifier here in a second. So let's hit Control R. That'll put us a vertical line. Hit left click and then right click to confirm it. A and then hit B to box select. Select that side and delete those vertices. Just hit X, delete vertices. So we have half the cube now. And we can go to this little wrench symbol, add modifier, and mirror modifier. And you don't see anything right off the bat, but that's because it's mirroring along the X-axis. We need it to mirror along the Y. So there we go. Now we're pretty much set up for a mirror modifier. So that way we don't have to model the whole thing, just half of it, and it'll be mirrored on the other half. And that's exactly what we want. We can also turn on clipping and get started. So first thing, we need to make it wide enough. So we just box select those vertices. Zoom out some. And you don't want it too wide. About like that might be good enough. You know what, maybe one more blender unit there. Perfect, just what we need. Okay, now we need to go up with it, so we'll hit Control R, add a loop cut, put it about there. Box select the top part, hit E to extrude, bring it up. This will be however tall we want our thing to be here, so we'll take it up a pretty good clip. About like so. I'm just kind of eyeballing this, so it may not be exact. We'll add another loop cut right there. Now if we hit 1 to go to front view, deselect everything, we need to bring it E to extrude. We need to bring it back about, oh, that's probably too long. Probably go, we're going to make a fairly short one. So let's, about right there is good. Control R, and then we need to bring it down. A, hit B to box select, select that, extrude, line it up right with the floor. That part's kind of important for realism here. All right. Add another loop cut because now we need to bring it back and finish it off. So if I zoom out, you can see we're starting to get this cool thing. Now we just need to finish this stand out. Quick way to do it, hit Control Tab and we can select between vertex, edge, and face. Select face mode, then we just need to select that face. E to extrude, bring it in. Click to confirm, and that's pretty much our base. Now it's real boxy, so what we need to do is add another modifier. Add modifier. Subdivision surface. We'll give it 3. Now you see we've got these weird curves right here, which we want to have some curve because it's supposed to be cylindrical, sort of. So we can go ahead and add those curves in. Tab back into edit mode. Control tab, go to edge mode. Then we'll add some loop cuts. Control R, click. Now don't bring this all the way over. Bring it about there. Then add one to the base because we still want a little bit of a curve there. And the same for the bottom. Bring it in. We want to keep a little curve there. And just add some loop cuts in here. And there. So there you go. Now you see we do have a little bit of a, I don't know, a dimple, I guess, right there. And the reason for that is because we still have our mirror modifier, and we brought in, and we've got a face that's sort of, we got tab and Z. We've got this face on the inside that we don't need. So what we'll do is go ahead and apply our mirror modifier, and we got to do that in object mode. So what that's going to do is give us one complete mesh to work with. So now that mirrored side that we couldn't really touch before, now we can select all the faces and change it as we need to. But what we go ahead and do is just go in and select that inner face that we don't need, and X, delete faces. And as you can see, that smoothed it out just right. Now if we put smooth shading on, now we've got this real smooth, looks pretty good. Okay, so that's the first step. Let's go ahead and save this. Call it Newton Tutorial 2. All right. Make sure it's saved. All right, so now our base is created. So we can go ahead and, just to get it out of the way, go ahead and give it a material. Just call this base. The base, however you want to apply your materials later. It's, I think in the preview render, they all have pretty much the same chrome material. Let me get a drink of water real quick. Give me 1 second. Okay, that's better. Okay, base is built. Let's get into the fun stuff. I just hit 1 to go into front view, and what we need to do is create the first orb, first ball. So Shift A, Mesh, UV Sphere. It's way too large, so let's go ahead and scale that down a whole bunch. Hit G to grab it, and kind of move it into place. Somewhere about there. 3 to go to side view, and you want to kind of just eyeball it. Get it right in the middle. So now, there we go. Okay, so that's the first ball. And if you didn't want to create the little the wires that go up, you don't have to. If you're just looking to play around with the physics, but if you're looking to make a Newton's Cradle, we're going to need those. So let's go ahead and Shift A, Mesh, Cylinder, and again, way too huge. Shrink it down, grab it, bring it right up to there. 3, zoom in. Now this is going to be really teeny because it's just supposed to be a wire. Probably bring it smaller than that. And let's go to 7 to top view. We want it to be pretty much centered with the ball. Alright, and we'll bring it down until it goes into the surface. And go to front view, make sure it's in there. Okay, go to wireframe, tab to go into edit mode, and we just want to select the top half. Then if we go to side view, what we can do is just hit G to grab and drag those top faces up so they're right in the center. Now if you wanted to get real detailed with the modeling portion, I'm not going into that much detail because this is more of a physics tutorial. You could go ahead and create the hooks that the wire would hang on, and there'd be a little loop on top of this ball for the wire to go through. That's up to you. I'm not going into that much detail. This isn't so much a modeling tutorial. So let's tab to go back into object mode, and then hit Shift D, right click, and back into edit mode. And we've still got those top faces selected. When we hit Shift D, what we did was duplicate it to where now we can just move it over on the Y, put it right in the center of our frame. A to deselect, B to box select the bottom, and we'll zoom in here and we'll move that over on the Y till it's pretty much in the same, that's not quite right, same position as the other one. It actually needs to come up a little bit, just a little, something like that. Not absolutely perfect, but doesn't have to be for what we're doing. Tab back in object mode, and we've basically got our base model set up. We can go ahead and click that and give it some smooth shading so you don't see all those edges. And oh man, the screen recording is kind of Making things a little jumpy here. Just give everything a little smooth shading. Now, to make things a little easier, what we need to do is group the two wires with the orb. So let's just right-click, hold down Shift, right-click the other one, and then right-click the orb, hit Control-J, and that'll group everything together to where now it's one piece, which is good. Which is good. Let's see. All right. All right, we're set up. Just checking my different views. Okay, now let's get into the physics. To get into the physics, we have a physics tab here, but you know, you've got force field, collision, cloth, smoke, soft body, etc. What we want to do is create a rigid body physics. It would be very easy to keyframe this whole thing. It would take some time. It wouldn't be complicated, but it would be time consuming. And if we were doing that, I wouldn't be calling this a physics tutorial. So let's go ahead and go into the physics engine. Most of the physics we're going to be using are under the Blender game engine. So right now we're in Blender render. So if we click right up here, we can go Blender game. So just click that. And now you see our physics panel completely changes. So we've got these physics types, soft body, sensors, dynamic, static, all of that. What we need for this one is we need rigid body. So click on rigid body. Now if I hit P right now to start the game engine, watch what happens to the ball. Bye-bye. It just falls away because there's nothing to attach it here. There's nothing to hold it in place against our frame. So first, before we get into that, let's go ahead and set up our physics. We can go ahead and bring up the mass on this. These numbers won't be exact. If your model, actually, I take that back. You know what? Let's put this back to static because there's one thing I forgot. The one thing we need to do before, one thing we need to do before we apply the rigid body or any of the joints we're going to apply is we need to, remember we scaled this down quite a bit. Before we can do that, we need to apply that scale data to the object. Think of it kind of like the mirror modifier. Before we were able to manipulate that mirrored side, we had to apply it to the object, and once it was applied, then it was there. Kind of the same principle here. We scaled it down, but it wasn't applied yet. So in order to apply that data, we have to hit Control A, and you'll get this pop-up menu. And all I really did, I didn't mess with, I didn't mess with the locate. Well, I did mess with the location, but that's not important. I didn't mess with the rotation at all. I just did the scale, but I'm going to go ahead and apply rotation and scale just to be safe. So now that data is applied to the object. So now the physics engine will be able to recognize those scale changes a little easier, and we won't get so funky results. So let's go ahead and turn on rigid body now. And you see this big circle, that's our radius. And what we need to do for the purpose of simulation is bring that down. You don't want to go too small with it. Let's zoom in here, go to wireframe, and you want to kind of get it just right on the edge of our mesh. And if it's a little bit below it, that's not too bad either. Hold down Shift, you'll get a little more precise on it. And probably go just below the surface. You want to kind of get it right on the surface. But if you're just a tiny bit below, that's not going to be too huge a deal. Of course, I say that now, but once we add the other orbs, it could be a problem. But okay, so we've got our radius set. Let's actually go 0.104. Just kick it out just a tad. Just a tad. And okay, these settings are actually really precise. Now, when you make your model, if you didn't have everything scaled exactly like I did, then your radius is not going to be 0.104. You're going to want to just eyeball it to get that line right on the edge of your orb. It's very important. So we've got that set up. We got our mass for 10. Okay. What's next? Let's go ahead. Oh, once we get into it and we start using some force, and we're going to have these basically rotating on the y-axis, going back and forth, click, clack, click, clack. And if we use enough force and we start kicking things up and putting a little more force behind it, sometimes the simulation will kick it and it'll start rotating on weird axes because of the amount of force hitting it. So we want to lock the X and the Z axis so that it doesn't sway on those axes. It'll stick to the y-axis. The harder we hit it, the harder it swings on the y-axis, right? So to do that, right here under the rigid body, we got lock rotation. We don't want it on the X, and we don't want any rotation on the Z. We only want it to rotate along this y-axis. So that's, leave that one unchecked. Check X, check Z, we're good to go, right? Good. Glad you're following me, guys. Okay. Next thing, I'm going to go ahead and click No Sleeping, and I want to use the Material Force field physics, so we can click that. So now all the physics that we're going to be doing, we're going to get from the material that we're going to apply to this here in a couple minutes. So let's actually, you know what, we can actually go ahead and apply the material now so we don't have to do it later. So we'll go to our materials tab, click new, type orb. And we don't need to mess with the colors or anything right now. If we scroll down, you'll see there's this physics tab. And that, if you're in Blender Render, you'll see, if you watch, it's not there. It's only part of the game engine physics. So we'll turn that on. And let's go ahead and set a few settings. We'll just give it a little friction. Let's kick the force up to 1. And the elasticity, that's what's going to create our effect we're looking for. You can put it all the way to 1, but I've noticed it's real touchy. So I usually set mine to 0.94. You'll actually get different effects if you have it all the way at 1 than 0.94. That's how touchy these settings are. I'll show you that here in a little bit, hopefully. There's one more thing we need to set up with this orb, because if we hit P, it still falls off the earth. So we don't want that. We want to lock it to this frame. To do that, we need to add a constraint. Now, this is where the magic's going to happen. This is where it's going to hold it to the frame, and it's going to cause it to pivot around whatever point we set, and that's what's going to bring it all together. So we'll click Add Constraint, and we want Rigid Body Joint. I know when I said pivot, you're tempted to just go straight for the pivot, but we want to go Rigid Body Joint, because we want to create a joint there. Now we click that and click Display Pivot, and you'll see we've got this pivot right in the middle. And then we can bump it up on the Z. Oh, get it right. See, 0.76. Let's see if we go, let's see if we just go 0.8. Yeah, actually, no, 0.78. Perfect, that's where we want it. And you'll see it's, see it's right in the middle. Go to side view. Center this up. You'll see it's right in the middle, and it's right lined up with that, so that's perfect. So now if we hit P, it just hangs there, and it's just hanging there because we've set it up where the pivot point is going to stay stationary. So that's perfect. It's not moving yet because we haven't angled the ball or anything like that. But now that that pivot point's set up, now we can go ahead, Shift D, drag these over, and it'll also copy our constraint that we added, so that we don't have to go in and apply it for each one individually. So select both of those, Shift D, drag them over, move over, and G and X, and get them right in there. This is like the third time I've recorded this tutorial, so I make a little mistake like that. I'm not really in the mood to start over from fresh, so you don't see the mistakes. I guess the mistakes are just proof that, hey, I'm human too. I make mistakes just like anybody, so maybe that'll make you feel better. When you make mistakes, you'll know that we all do. So there we go. Now we've got our simulation pretty set up. Of course, if we hit P, nothing's going to happen. They're just going to hang there because we haven't finished setting up the physics. So if we go back to our material tab here, we've actually pretty much set up our physics pretty well. What we need to do also, this will make the simulation run a little more smoothly, is if we go over here into our scene tab, you'll see our gravity's turned on. We have a negative 9.81 for our gravity. For this particular simulation, that is way too light. So let's go ahead and click on it and put negative, let's say 28. We'll try that. That worked in my last simulation. Who knows if it'll work in this one. Sometimes these can be a little touchy. Okay, so we've got everything set up. I'm in front view. Now what we need to do is we need to rotate this orb out to when we start the physics engine, it'll come in, smack that one, transfer its energy, and then pop this one out the other side. So to rotate that, if we just hit R and Y to rotate, you see it's rotating around the center of the orb, and we don't want it to rotate around the center of the orb. We want it to rotate around this point here. So if we put our cursor, just left click, hit 3, left click, and we zoom in on our pivot point because we want it to rotate right around that. All right, and it's pretty good, actually. There we go. We want it to rotate around that point. So if we hit the period key on the keyboard, right, hit period, it'll move our center point to wherever the 3D cursor was. Comma will bring it back to the center of the object. period will move it to the 3D cursor. So now, if we hit R and Y to rotate on the Y-axis, it's rotating around that point, and it's bringing the orb up. So let's bring it up pretty far. Now if we hit P, let's see what happens. See if it works. Wow. It's hitting pretty hard. And it's acting a little funky too. So what's going on there? You know what? You know what I think it is? I think we've got some of these that aren't set quite right. So let's, come on now. There we go. X, let's move that a little closer. And let's see if that changes the game. Well, it changed the game. See how little tiny tweaks like that can really, really change things? So let's go in and grab X and just kind of make them touch a little bit. It's weird how the smallest little tweaks can make all the difference in the world with this physics engine. It's very precise. And sometimes you just got to play with it a little bit so you get something you like. That's not working either. Maybe if I went, maybe they're too close together. Let's try pulling them apart. Maybe, possibly. Not having them so close together. Oh, come on. And let's try that. See if that G and X. There we go. Of course, that second bounce is throwing it off a little bit, but that's okay. We're starting to get the result we're looking for. Bam. And that. Let's see. Bam. And so that's not quite right. So let's go in here. G, X. Move them apart a little more. G, X. Move them apart. And it's kind of it's a real give and take relationship. And G, X. Bring them in. GX, bring it in. You can also hold down Shift when you're doing that, and it'll give you a little more fine-tuned control. There we go. See? All a matter of just kind of tweaking. If they're acting funny, you might move them closer together, further apart, and get what you're after. So that took a little bit of time. I'm glad you guys stuck with me through that one. I didn't have that much trouble when I did the first simulation. It just goes to show you that when you're having problems getting the right result, it's good for you to see my mistakes or my tweaks. That's why I choose not to edit these things out, because when you have problems doing it, it's nice to know, okay, what can I do to try and fix this? And that's one of the things you can do. So I'm leaving that little blunder in this video so you can see what I'm talking about. So one more time. Bank, bank, click, clack, click, clack, and then it starts to slow down as the energy dissipates. So that is a Newton's Cradle, fellas and ladies. I'm sure I've got a few lady viewers out there. All right, so now that we have everything set up in the Blender game engine, click, clack, click, clack, click. Awesome. What we need to do is we need to get it into the Blender render engine so that we can render out our animation. All we really need to do is go right up here to the top, Game, and Record Animation. You click that. You'll notice you notice it's got a check mark next to it now. And now if we hit P on the keyboard, it'll go a little slower because now it's recording our animation. But what it's also doing is it's recording it to where when we go back into Blender engine, it'll be all keyframed. So we'll just let this play out to a point we like. You know, it eventually starts to slow down. The energy starts to dissipate, just like a Newton's Cradle. Nice physics going on there. And just remember, if it's not giving you exactly what you want to do is you want to tweak with the position of where the balls are and even the radius under the rigid body physics. And just play with that, tweak it, and reposition how close the balls are to one another, and that'll give you the result as you saw me doing for a good, 7 minutes? Which is a mistake. In any other video I probably would have cut out in editing, but I felt it was important to show you. That way you're not constantly emailing me saying, how come my simulation doesn't work? It's a very precise simulation. So once we get to about this point, you can let it play until the balls are all stationary again, but just go ahead and hit escape. It'll take us back to this, and if we go to Blender Render, select one of the balls, you'll see we have all these keyframes here. And we go into wireframe so it'll play a little faster. If we hit Alt-A to play our time frame, we've got exactly what we're looking for. We can go into, I guess we'll just go into it real quick here. Materials and such. And you know what, actually, I'll tell you what, I use some HDR lighting and things like that. I might save that for a part 2 on this, and we'll set up a studio and lighting and whatnot. This one's just more about looking into the physics. We're already at over half an hour. There's really no need to spend another 20 minutes here texturing and materials and all of that. We'll get into that in part 2 of this Newton's Cradle tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and stop this right now. Guys, I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It feels good to get back into recording. Tune in very soon for part 2 of this Newton's Cradle tutorial. Guys, thank you for watching. My name is Chad Allen once again, and you've been watching Firechild Video Blender Tutorials. We'll see you guys for part 2.